I feel like the more Black Mirror we get, the more polarizing it becomes. People either worship it or think it's the dumbest shit out there. Personally, I like it a lot, but I can see why some people don't like it. It can get to a point where it's sort of up its own ass. Sometimes all it really seems to be saying is technology is dangerous, but I feel like it usually has some really smart writing and impressive filmmaking, and most episodes usually have more to say than just that. So today we're looking at Bandersnatch, which is marketed as a Black Mirror movie. I suspect that that's just because of the means of presentation, because it feels more like another episode of Black Mirror than a movie, but that's arbitrary anyway. I don't think I have to explain what Bandersnatch is. It caught on pretty quickly. I think most people by now have seen it, so let's get right into what I thought about it. Frankly, I thought it was great. As per usual, the team delivered something that's fresh, energetic, exciting, thought-provoking. Those are all very basic labels, but I'll get into it, don't worry. Now, as innovative as it is, let's not act like this is the first interactive movie. I remember watching this interactive pizza commercial on YouTube years ago. Apparently there's an interactive Minecraft thing that's already on Netflix. And typically how these things go, or at least how the pizza thing went, was there's a right decision and a wrong decision, and if you make the wrong decision, you just go back and choose the other option. But Bandersnatch is adamant that it be, rather than just an interactive movie, a visual translation of a choose-your-own-adventure book. Now, I've only ever done one of these. It was this Goosebumps book, and the way I remember it, rather than having a right and wrong decision and going back and just picking the other, depending on the decision, you could go down several different narrative threads with several forks, and backtracking would take forever, but it was fun as hell, and I remember wanting to do another. That's what I would assume the in-world novel Bandersnatch is like, but I found the whole system to be kind of, I don't want to say limited, but at first I was kind of disappointed that the decisions didn't have more impact on the narrative. Many of the decisions were more wallpaper than anything. Picking your cereal or your music, picking how you destroy your computer rather than whether or not to destroy your computer. Or with the other computer decision, it does do the thing where if you pick the wrong one, it just has you go back. Again, this frustrated me at first because I was worried they were wasting some great potential, but as the story went on, I began to understand exactly why the choices were the way they were, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The performances are strong. Fionn Whitehead has more to chew on here than he did in Dunkirk, which is the only other film I've seen him in. And he delivers. Will Poulter is also great, and I guess I should address his Kelly Marie Tran situation, taking a step back from social media because of audiences sort of bullying him, although this time for eyebrow reasons rather than racism. People are annoying. The character he plays in the film is supposed to be out there, kind of weird and pretentious. I think Poulter knew exactly who this character was, played into it perfectly, and now he's getting made fun of for it. That's fucked up. The other actors, while less essential despite having probably more screen time than Will Poulter, are also great. Especially Craig Parkinson for walking that fine line of grating, but caring, but annoying, but lovable, but ultimately aggravating. There are surprisingly few characters in this, which works to the film's advantage because there's already a lot going on, and this brings some desperately needed simplicity to the narrative. And even so, it has to juggle the backstory with the mom, the game development, the losing free will, the breaking time and physics, the Pax conspiracy, and the film admittedly does feel a little unfocused towards the middle, but I think for the most part it does a commendable job letting all these ideas play together. I can't say I was a biggest fan of the editing. You can only do so much in the decision scenes trying to make it organic, which it usually was kind of jarring. But even in the scenes between each decision, something about the shot-to-shot editing threw me off a little. It wasn't terrible, and I don't think I know enough to be able to pinpoint what exactly it was about it, but that was something that hindered the experience a little bit. Aside from that, the film is very visually engaging. Some great cinematography, iconic images, and this scene was, every acid scene in every movie is going to be trippy and usually cool to look at, and that's what this is, but I'm not sure I'd call that a bad thing. While we're talking about this scene, I should mention something that kind of works here and kind of doesn't, that a lot of shows and movies try and usually fail to do. It's the whole characters on drugs talking about abstract concepts that screenwriters would talk about, but not necessarily these characters. So the drugs sort of act as a way of saying, don't actually take any of this seriously, they're on drugs. But deep down, the film wants us to take what they're saying at least a little seriously. The problem here is that it can often act as a crutch or a cop-out, like in 13 Reasons Why. But I didn't have the problems here that I usually have, or at least not to the same degree, and that's probably because of Will Poulter's character in general being kind of that guy, and the direction the film takes from this scene on, playing with reality and memory and stuff, I think is really neat and makes the scene work a little better. Towards the end, the choices gain a lot more influence over the events of the story. There are quite a few different endings. I'm not sure exactly how it works, how much is by design to happen on your first go and how much just happened to be on mine. But I did the chop up dad choice and got the ending where he made a 5 out of 5 game by simplifying things, and rather than having all those different full threads like in the novel Bandersnatch, he stuck to his own vision and his own story and had all the choices for the player really just be the illusion of choice, making them think they've uncovered what was in reality the intended story all along. And that's when I realized what all the previous choices were. Sure, there are a few ways the end can go. I thought the end where he goes back and dies with his mom was a really neat and poetic ending, but the most thematically satisfying full circle ending is this one because it describes the experience that we've just had. And I think this is really cool because that makes this not really a true interactive or choose your own adventure story at all. It's just a Black Mirror episode that brilliantly uses the structure of choose your own adventure stories as a sort of rhetorical mode to comment on choose your own adventure stories and all the other stuff the episode is about. So about the end, like the end, where it shows Colin Rittman's daughter developing Bandersnatch for Netflix. So on one hand, I think it's really cool because the game Stefan is developing is Bandersnatch, but rather than naming the episode Bandersnatch because that's what it's about, it's called Bandersnatch because it literally is Bandersnatch. I'm gonna stop saying that word now. I also think it's really cool that shows like Black Mirror and American Vandal are in the unique position where they can be self-aware of the fact that they're shows on Netflix. I think both shows have incorporated that organically and interestingly. Although I don't think too many more Netflix properties should do that because it could get annoying very quickly. On the other hand, this ending makes a little too explicit and spoon-fed the idea that Stefan's game with the illusion of choice is what we're watching, which makes the realization a little less rewarding. It also feels like the movie reaches a point where it's just trying to see how meta it can possibly get, especially with the alternative Netflix computer scene. But again, because Black Mirror is in that unique position, because that is how we're controlling this character, and because the writers use this meta structure to make even more satirical commentary, I was okay with it. I should also mention that I appreciate that, even though this isn't the first Black Mirror episode for which this is the case, it's not criticizing the technology itself. It's using the technology to frame a story about characters and themes relating to stuff beyond this piece of technology is bad. I think this film, or episode, or whatever you want to call it, is still decently polarizing. I've seen a lot of people say it's just the same Black Mirror bullshit, and while I disagree, I can't say I don't see where they're coming from. While it has some issues, again, mostly juggling everything that's going on and over-explaining something really cool, and some editing choices, I found that there was a lot to love about this that far surpassed what there was to dislike, and I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, as always. Let me know about your experience watching this. I have a feeling there are some pretty entertaining stories, and even though I think I did all the alternative choices after my first run-through, I'd like to hear about people whose first run-through went differently from mine. Links to my social media and Patreon are in the description. Go click on those, and have a nice day.